about to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You're now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Smello.
Hey, what's up, Denise Simon? It's your buddy Don calling in for tonight's SITREP, except tonight I'm doing pretty good, but I got all my friends with me tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first to welcome you to tonight's Drive Time Situation Report. On one end of this conversation would be the wonderful Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience and Intel Analyst Extraordinaire. On the other end of this conversation would be me. So, having said all that, you like that, Denise?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I think with full disclosure, Denise and I missed a SITREP on Monday. Right now it's Tuesday, and Denise is about to timestamp it for us. But, so, you know, and I don't think we talked on Sunday. We may have talked Saturday. Point being, ladies and gentlemen, I'm 3 days behind the 8 ball here. So Denise has a lot of work ahead of her. I'm probably going to shut up for the majority of this Drive Time SITREP and let her do the educating. So without any further ado, let's strap in for the ride, guys and gals. Denise Simon, timestamp it, and let's get after it.
Hello, it is 7:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 16th of January in the year of our Lord, 2018.
Awesome sauce, Denise. Awesome sauce. Hey, guess what's going on here in lovely Atlanta, Georgia?
Freezing?
Which is why I'm about an hour and a half ahead of schedule on tonight's SITREP. We've got snow flurries. Now, do you know what that means? You know what that means because you lived in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what that means is that we've got a few flurries that if you look closely enough, you can
find
see.
them.
Yeah. But it also means that the entire city of Atlanta is now almost paralyzed with fear. Am I right, Denise? You lived in Atlanta.
I know how that works.
I mean, Atlanta, Georgia actually shuts down their schools, the public schools, if it's too cold.
Well, I hope you're already about to Kroger on the way home. Go Krogering.
No, actually not. I mean, we've got plenty of food at the house, and that which we don't have inside, we could probably hunt by standing on our back porch.
All right.
But I'm not in the mood to shoot squirrel, and I quite frankly, have you ever eaten squirrel?
I'm not sure that I have.
Well, I think you'd probably know it if you had.
Not sure that I have.
Because you're not a heavy drinker.
No.
All right, well, I would say you would have known it if you had eaten squirrel.
Okay.
How about possum? You ever had possum?
No.
Rattlesnake?
No.
How about let's think of one more other thing. How about a combination of a prune smoothie and a bratwurst?
No.
All righty then. All right, let's get after it because I don't think people are tuning into this radio show for me to ask you what type of a varmint you may have had while dining out one night.
Probably not. Good assessment.
All right, so Denise, what have I missed in the past 3 days other than S-hole, 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 and the Spanish television, I think, is saying S-A-hole. And, what's going on with something other than S-hole?
Well, Trump had his physical today. And his doctor, who is not his normal doctor, but he's more like the president assigned doctor, was told to go out to the press corps and answer every single question with complete honesty, not holding anything back, and tell the press everything that that needed to be said. They virtually asked every question 97 different ways, mostly going after whether he was nuts or not, any signs of dementia, any kind of signs of cognitive issues, anything. And he got a score. He had a cognitive test, by the way, and got a 30 out of 30. And
was that a multiple choice test? Like, did he fill in the bubbles?
It's actually, I don't know. I mean, it's a highly respected test. It's well known within the medical community if you're having some kind of, mental acuity questions. But anyway, I mean, he was literally out there an hour, probably even more. The questions
I can only imagine the imbecile questions.
Yeah,
imbecilistic questions that were asked.
It really got to be kind of ridiculous. Exactly.
Do you recall any questions? Because I didn't get to see this.
Well, I mean, they just what are his habits? He repeats himself a lot. He has these outbursts. Doesn't that aren't those early signs of dementia? And well, yeah, they could be, but in this particular case, he does have to go on a diet and exercise regimen because they say he weighs 235 pounds, I think. Well, this guy eats McDonald's.
Isn't he like 6'3" or 6'4"? He's a big guy, isn't he?
He's a big guy. He eats McDonald's all the time. That can't be good for his heart. And they said, look, the guy's got good genetics. He doesn't drink. He's never had alcohol. Doesn't smoke. I mean, CNN pushed, and Jim Acosta, they just pushed and pushed and pushed. I mean, it was really quite remarkable. And then Fox later on brought on their resident, doctor, whatever his name is, and said, okay, on what you heard, did you feel like this was complete, and what about these tests? And he said, I'll tell you something. His cholesterol might be a little on the high side, but everything else is remarkable given the age of the man. Remarkable. And for somebody that could be in their 50s or 60s, his results were still remarkable.
Which absolutely sent the mainstream media into a whirling dervish.
They wanted something. They were. Are you? And some of them said, "Are you holding anything back? Were you told to come out here and hold when you came out here to hold anything back? Were you told to? Were you told to not say anything about this or not say anything about that?" I mean, they literally tried and tried and tried 16 different ways.
That is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But it is so typical. I mean, if you told me that if I had known that Trump was going to have this evaluation done and these results released today to the press and his doctor was going to go out there, I would have probably said, and I bet they're going to ask the stupidest damn questions over and over and over again of this man for an hour to 2 hours.
Well, it was really rather unprecedented.
Exactly what they did.
Yeah, it was rather unprecedented because every other time that, a sitting president has had this, they have come out and just said he's in excellent health. These are, and basically we tested da-da-da-da, and everything is great. Okay. No. This one probably went against every single HIPAA law that there was to the point where, he was giving actual numbers on blood oxygen and whatever else. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I didn't even hear all of it. I mean, I heard probably 40 minutes of it, and I could just tell the media, they were crestfallen.
It's difficult to wrap my head around how many different medical questions you could ask about an individual in 40 minutes.
Well, you could see some of them. What was the name of the test that you did for this? And he would give them it, and then they look at it. They're on their phones looking stuff up. Well, what about this? Did you do this? Yeah.
Isn't it pathetic? Isn't it absolutely pathetic?
It was a little rich, for sure.
This is going to be the basis or the topic that Donna and I are going to speak about at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition Convention this weekend in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We're talking about the media. And, quite frankly, the past year and a half have given us more to talk about than we'll ever be able to discuss. But even more so, this past week has given us an enormous amount to talk about. It's amazing how absolutely vile, unprofessional, unethical, biased the media is. It's embarrassing. Don't you agree?
Well, I do, and there's a couple of things I'd like to say about that. I get emails, I think at least twice a day, from the Washington Post with all their little headlines. I don't necessarily read them all, or the actual articles, because I have to, there's a paywall in front of it, and I'm not paying them anything. But the way they word the headlines, you would think that this person in the White House is President Plague. I mean, it's really it's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And then if you look, and I'm not good at channel surfing. I normally just keep it on one channel, but it's on mute all day long because I don't want to be led. I am not a group thinker by any stretch of the imagination. I'll see something and then I'll go my own way to go see what it's about. But I will tell you that my husband's actually very good at, there's an issue that's come up and he's going to go trot down to every single one of the channels and he's going to hear what they have to say. And sometimes he's in the other room and I can hear the doors open and I'll hear something and I'll just jump up and I'll walk out there and go, really? It is, in CNN, I would say, is by far the worst.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To the point where it's actually boring. I mean, because they don't talk about anything else. They'll take a topic and they'll turn it into 4 nights of panel discussions. And there's a different members of these panels. So they've called in everybody that they can think of, 20 people, for 3 or 4 nights in a row to talk about the fact that he's, said this or tweeted that or, whatever. I mean, it and nothing else matters. It doesn't matter that a ship sunk. It doesn't matter that North Korea launched a missile. It doesn't matter that somebody was arrested. It does none of the other stuff matters. It's
well, how can it matter?
The
day after the alleged S-hole comment, which we all, if you have a brain cell and you have any common sense and you do a little research, all of those countries that he was talking about are S-hole countries. But the day afterwards, in a 24-hour period, and I know I'm not telling you something you don't already know here, CNN blurts out the word S-hole 195 times. How do you, as a producer, as the brass for the network, how do you not look at your own network and go, wow, this is, somebody should have stopped that. This is embarrassing.
As I said, my husband channel surfs. Well, here's 2 remarkable things that happened on New Year's Eve. One is they have got some woman on some, I don't know, some bus or something, and the fact that California was going to, as a state, effective, January the 1st, they were legalizing pot or something. I'm going to get some of this wrong. But
wasn't she hitting a bong? She was hitting a bong, wasn't she?
Yes. But the other remarkable thing, I was sitting here doing something else, and I heard my husband go, "What the heck?" Of course, he said it a very different way. Is that? And Anderson Cooper apparently was joined by his significant other person, and kind of sort of did. He may not have known the camera was still rolling, but Anderson wishes his boyfriend a Happy New Year, and they proceeded to French kiss each other, and the camera caught it. I went in there and I said, well, what, because he normally doesn't say those kinds of things, and the way he said it, I went in there, I said, what happened? He said, you won't even believe what I just saw. And nobody talks about that.
Listen, I hope Anderson and his boyfriend are happy and that they have a long, monogamous relationship. I truly do. But you know what? The mainstream media, and especially CNN, have turned into freaks of nature.
The only good thing is, we didn't have to deal with Anderson Cooper and Kathy Griffin. But what they replaced it with wasn't any different.
She can't get a job. Yeah, really. Hey, Denise, the snow's coming down pretty heavily here on I-20 as I head west.
All right.
Before we get into anything else, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to probably the most unique and hopefully one of the most entertaining talk radio shows that's on the airwaves. This is the Drive Time Situation Report, or if you're cool and you want to talk kind of like Intel military lingo, the Drive Time SITREP. Now, on one end of this conversation is Denise Simon speaking to us from her bunker down near the Tampa Bay, Florida area. I, on the other hand, am driving through a snowstorm in my car on the way home from work, heading west on I-20 out of the hellhole that we call Atlanta, heading to paradise that we call my home. And every night of the week, I give Denise a call. I get a sit rep on what's going on because she spends all day deep in the weeds, sifting through various intelligence articles, reading about 50,000 words any given day. I don't do that. I spend my day working in the world of rock and roll. So I got to count on Denise to bring me up to speed so that whenever you people hear me talk, you're impressed and you happen to think that I am more intelligent than I actually am. And so far, Denise, for about 5 years or 4.5 years, it's worked. So thank you.
Okay. All right.
Hey, look at this. You got me to the point where I'm actually speaking at a big convention with people like Claire Lopez and Dr. Peter Vincent Fry and Admiral Ace Lyons and, gosh, a whole host of people that are way, way more qualified to be there than I should be an attendee. But because of you, I've appeared to be more intelligent, and Joe Dugan at the South Carolina Tea Party Coalition has decided that I warrant a spot on that stage. So hat tip Denise Simon for making Don Neuen look more brilliant than he could ever be.
Oh, I shouldn't even be part of that subject, but thanks.
Well, I'm gonna have a little earbud. I'm gonna have one of those little, intelligence analyst, FBI, CIA earbuds, and I'm gonna have you pump me with information during our discussion.
Oh, we're gonna do some audio tasing here or something?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. All right, so what else is going on, Denise?
Well, this is kind of breaking, and this is actually quite remarkable. We know that we have had our share of naval accidents on the high seas. We know that the USS Fitzgerald and the USS McCain both had some pretty nasty accidents, crashes, to the point where we've lost crew members on both of them. Well, interestingly enough, Don, the Navy has decided to charge Commander Bryce Benson, who was the commander of the USS Fitzgerald, and 3 junior grade officers under Article 32 that include dereliction of duty, hazarding a vessel, and negligent homicide. Commander Alfredo Sanchez, who was the captain of the USS McCain, also faces dereliction of duty, hazarding a vessel, and negligent homicide. And that one resulted, one had 17 deaths and the other one had 10 deaths. I don't know that I've ever seen the Navy do anything like this, but they are virtually being charged with negligent homicide.
All right, stop right there. Let me ask you this. What would, in your opinion, and I know this is breaking, you haven't had time to research this and sift through it, but in your estimate, what type of an action or an inaction would require that heavy and that unprecedented of a charge?
Well, let me say this. When there have been other accidents, and I'm sure that there have been other deaths, normally they are obviously relieved at command. Normally they are essentially fired from the Navy and you're out of here. I think it has also been found, however, because, and I'm going to probably say this wrong, but do we not have the smallest Navy than we've had since before, since World War I or something like that?
Yeah, it's been purged for sure.
Well, we have also heard that we are overworking our naval assets. They are everywhere. And the crew gets rotated, their deployments get rotated. It's in and out, in and out, in and out. We've also heard that the crew is not, their training in of itself has been cut essentially in half. Now, I don't believe that's because of these commanders. I believe that was a naval decision because we are keeping these ships way too busy. Well, that is not a problem of these commanders. I think that was a decision from the higher ups. So I'm hoping that some of that will, when this Article 32 hearing thing happens with all this going on, I hope that, these guys are ultimately responsible. I can't take that away from them. Because they are. But from what I know, neither of them were at the helm. One I know was in bed. Yes, they're ultimately responsible, but for negligent homicide.
That's pretty heavy to have thrown against you while you were asleep.
Yeah. Now, when the proceedings start for these court martials, I do not know. But this is, you ever just, wonder about a consequence or what happened to the rest of the story? Now you're getting it. Woo!
All right, you hit me. And let's hope that this is just handled in a way that absolute justice is served fairly, and that if these guys are responsible for negligent homicide, then they need to pay the price for that. Obviously.
Yeah.
It is quite stunning that, at least to your recollection, you've never seen anything like this ever.
No.
All right, you hit me with a text message this afternoon that said Bannon took the fifth. You want to get into that at all?
I will, and I kind of lied on that one because I kind of jumped to conclusions. Normally, when you refuse to answer questions, my knee-jerk reaction was that he took the fifth. He actually did not take the fifth, so I need to correct the text message on that one. He did, however, essentially refused to answer questions under the direction of the White House. And that kind of upset both sides in the House Intelligence Committee. So he essentially was In fact, he was immediately slapped with a subpoena to appear before a grand jury. So that doesn't look real good now, does it?
No, but let me ask you this. Is there any chance that the reason that the White House told him to do that was simply to screw with this committee?
Well, I think what is necessarily, I heard a little bit about what Sarah Sanders' response was, and the response was, for decades, presidents have applied executive privilege to those that work in the White House.
Well, we just went through 8 years and probably 4 of you telling me on a nightly basis, sorry, Don, Susan Rice and Valerie Jarrett and so-and-so and Ben Rhodes and Hillary Clinton and da-da-da-da-da are going to have executive privilege.
However, you cannot give anybody, I don't think, executive privilege until you're in the White House. And
well, that would make sense.
Right. And so the time leading from the campaign trail during the transition, which obviously includes, piece parts of the election, you can't give them executive privilege now, can you?
I don't know. When I was elected president of the United States a few years back, times were really different, Denise. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Drive Time Situation Report. My name is Don Neuen. I'm the co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio that airs Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You've got on the other end of this fruitful conversation and entertaining conversation, one Denise Simon, the host of the Denise Simon Experience that airs 9 o'clock Eastern on Thursday nights. Both shows can be heard on the Talk America Radio Network, found at talkamericaradio.us. The reason that the fidelity and the audio quality of this show every week is substandard is because it's intended to be that way. I'm in my car driving home from a long day at work, calling in, as I do every night, to Denise Simon to get a situation report. That's why Denise sounds so much better, fidelity-wise, than I do. I'm talking to you on an iPhone, and I'm driving down the interstate at 65 miles an hour. So you're going to hear a road noise. We may drop out and have to, call back. But the point is, we decided probably 6 months ago that we wanted to bring you, our beloved listeners, along for the ride one night a week. So that's what we're doing. This is a candid conversation. Never is it rehearsed, right, Denise? We don't script this at all.
No, yeah.
You may make a few notes throughout the day on what you want to talk about, but I'm driving in a car in the dark on the interstate, ladies and gentlemen, so I don't have any notes that I'm going by. It's just a very typical, probably a cleaner version of the conversations that Denise and I have 4 other nights out of the week. So let's get back to it, Denise. What else is going on?
All right. Well, I think, Bannon couldn't necessarily answer some questions about, the election time and maybe even up to the transition. But I don't know how many questions he was asked that he did answer and how many questions he asked that he refused to answer. But apparently any of those questions that happened about his time during the White House and in on the transition, he refused. So
was this closed door?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yes. But he did not cite executive privilege. He just cited refusal. And he did not cite the Fifth Amendment. He just cited, I refuse. So there's a distinction, although Sarah Huckabee Sanders did refer to it as executive privilege. So I don't know. And I don't know what she was asked, further on that in the press briefing, because I didn't listen to it all. Just couldn't do it.
Well, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is not one of your favorite people. And we need a full transparency on this, okay? Let's go to Hawaii, Denise. This past weekend, there was quite an event that took place. in the state of Hawaii in which for 34 or 38 minutes, the residents of that state were freaking out because of a false alarm for an incoming missile. What do you know about it at this point? And is it because of a guy who allegedly pushed the wrong button? You know, it's got to be more complex than that.
Well, first of all, there is no button to push.
Exactly. I set you up for that answer. Do you like that?
There is a drop-down menu, and in this drop-down menu, it has several things. Tsunami or a drill or, certain kinds of other weather or whatever. And the fact that this is not a drill was one of those options. Now,
are you telling me? Hold on a second. Are you telling me that this whole thing was because an individual was foiled by a drop-down menu?
Foiled. Okay.
I think all of us have been the victim of a drop-down menu foiling, especially when we're, trying to select, say, the state in which we live in or our gender. I mean, Denise, come on, be honest. How many times have you listed that you were in fact a male on a drop-down menu when quite clearly you're not?
Probably none.
Well, I've listed myself as a female many times because I, Don Neuen, have been foiled by drop-down menus. Back to you, Denise.
Here's the fascinating thing now. The deeper questions have not been asked or answered yet, and that is, did this particular system in Hawaii stand alone? Was it something that was designed by Hawaii's emergency management, or did it have any kind of federal or state or military oversight? The reason I ask is because not all cell phones got the alert. And there is some discussion that the majority of those that did not get the alert were AT&T subscribers. The other, and the other interesting thing is, if in fact you have got a missile that is heading to Hawaii, why was it only a system that alerted Hawaii or Hawaiians? And if it's, my first question still stands, that it wasn't integrated enough that anybody on the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, and maybe even Alaska, were not given any kind of tap on the shoulder. In other words, it didn't have some kind of a relay to tell them either. You see what I'm saying? So there was no connective tissue.
It seems like a very archaic and prone to be problematic or error-ridden. The potential for as we saw, a major error. Doing this by a drop-down menu.
Well, apparently, too, the police were not part of all of that. In fact, they have maybe their own separate system, and they knew immediately that there was no official alert condition. So they apparently went back to EMS, Emergency Management Services, and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" But yet the police, the law enforcement wing, doesn't have the power or the authority to say shut it off or cancel it or any of that. So there was no checks and balances there either. And furthermore, the military, I don't know what role they played by calling up EMS and going, "Hey, what are you doing?" There's no such thing.
Well, not to mention that this whole thing was this whole catastrophe was created by a guy holding a mouse or touching a touch screen. Mm-hmm. I mean, where's one of his coworkers that's going, hey man, be careful when you use that drop-down menu. Don't be foiled by the drop-down menu.
What's at issue is we have to remember the 38 minutes of terror. And the reason I say that is because since, I don't know, maybe 2 missiles ago, maybe 3 North Korean missiles ago, the state of Hawaii pulled out some old Cold War era procedures, and they have adapted and updated and whatever, and they started creating these public service announcements. They started participating or putting out these training classes on where you need to go. They obviously did something with the cell phones to get all the cell phones into some system where they would get these alerts. They were doing these drills where the little siren things up on these poles were going off. So the people in Hawaii, which is what, 1.5 million residents, not including how many are tourists, they are conditioned for this kind of thing now because they had been through all of this stuff. So their mindset is they heard this, they're going. And they've been told, I think, that they have something like 12 minutes to get from wherever they are to wherever you need to be, because on the 13th minute, it's over with. So,
jeez.
Yes. And that's
sounds like the kind of stuff. That sounds like the kind of stuff that, Hagit Canary talks to me about with the drills and the the exercises they go through in Israel.
In Israel.
Yeah.
Now,
hey, tell me that part of this training and exercises that these Hawaiians are doing doesn't involve school kids climbing under their desks.
I have no idea. I have not read the whole thing. I have looked at what they are doing, but I haven't looked at the specifics chapter by chapter, so I cannot speak to that.
Well, you and Donna are old enough that I know you remember doing that, because when you guys had to get under your desks, you and Donna, that is, you had to worry about bumping your head on those doggone inkwells, didn't you?
Well, we didn't have inkwells, and we didn't write with plumes
either. Yes, you did. Yes. Hey, I always kid Donna that she had inkwells, and you're older than she is. I know you had to have inkwells.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Did you have pencils, number 2 pencils?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kidding, Denise. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm busting Denise's chops because she's older than I am.
You're trying to.
And you don't play along like Donna does. You really don't.
I do remember those days. I do remember the drills. When you're in the classroom or when you're in the hallway, you had to run up to the locker. I remember all that, but we didn't have any inkwells. Nice try.
Okay.
Donna may have had inkwells. She may have had some leftover school furniture that we didn't use.
No, she didn't. I just give her trouble about that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, you need to go check out a website, and that is Denise's website. Now that I've gotten myself into the doghouse with her, I'm going to try to get back out of it again. And watch how well I do this. Ladies and gentlemen, her website is founderscode.com. Founders with an S, like the founding fathers, founderscode.com. Now, when you go to that website, there's going to be a little teeny thing that you can type your email address into. Please do that. It'll put you on her mailing list. And anytime she posts an article, you're going to get it in your email inbox, and you can read it at your leisure. But the thing is, Denise takes the time and puts forth the effort to make sure that anything she posts on her website, unlike text messages that she sends me,
I
are
took it
well
back, though.
vetted.
I took it back.
Vetted.
I
know
made
you
the
did.
correction.
8 hours later.
It wasn't well.
Better late than never. Better late than never, though. But the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, she takes the time to vet the information so that you can get into this stuff, you can discuss it, you can repost it or share it or like it without looking like an idiot. She does all the work for you. See, I keep trying to tell you guys that if it wasn't for Denise, I'd look like an idiot. Now, Denise, did I get out of the doghouse with that? With
You're
that little build-up, with that little PR?
You're good. You weren't in it
campaign?
anyway. Yeah, you're good. You're good. You get the
Okay.
blue ribbon.
Yeah.
But on the
All right,
heels of
cool.
all of this is what's kind of interesting. On the heels of what happened in Hawaii, um, two other things dovetailed that event that, of course, media is not talking about. And one is that the State Department issued a stark warning that anybody that is headed to North Korea, now we do have, study groups and, people that for whatever reason they want to go to North Korea. They issued a stark warning that said, you need, in the warning, you should be be prepared for the possibility of not returning. It goes on to say, yeah,
lovely.
It goes on
Why would anybody want to go to that S-hole?
I don't know.
SA.
But you have to get special validation from the State Department, and they are in fact approved on very limited circumstances that you can travel to North Korea. But now if you go to do that, you also have to give to the State Department the fact that you have a will, that you have made funeral and property arrangements with your family and friends, that you have to designate appropriate insurance beneficiaries and or power of attorney. You have to have a affidavit says that you have discussed all of these with your loved ones regarding the care and custody of your children, your pets, your property, you have to deal with non-liquid assets like collections, artwork, all those kinds of things. So you have to provide all those things now. So in other words, they're saying, don't go.
No kidding. Are there
Yeah.
any other countries that they do this?
No.
Just North Korea.
Yes. And then the other fascinating thing that happened was our dear friend Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister. He decides on this same weekend that he is going to come out and do some kind of press briefings, if you will. And he is telling the world that all things Syria, all things Iran, all things North Korea are all the fault of the United States. And he went on with a full-blown litany of all of these things that the United States has meddled in that has caused all of these tensions across the globe. And it's all Obama's fault, of which Trump picked up the baton and made things even worse. I would also say that Lavrov is saying that the United States wants to split Syria in half. Interestingly enough, though, we are taking an awful lot of people through the CIA, and we are enhancing the Syrian Defense Force over there. So, I mean, we are still continuing to do that after, Syria has left the headlines, completely left the headline. Nobody talks about it anymore.
Well, exactly. It's kind of like you got the Syria thing that's left the headlines. You've got North Korea that's left the headlines. You've got the sexual assault situation that's left the headlines. It's amazing how after maybe a week or 2 weeks, all of these problems just magically fix themselves. Isn't it a mind blow, Denise? Because, I think it's safe to say, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that if the mainstream media isn't focusing on it, it's not important or it has been resolved. Don't you agree?
Well, I do have to give a little bit of a hat tip to CBS, because this past Sunday night, and I caught it late because I'm not a watcher of CBS, but they did do quite an extensive interview with one of the former top nuclear weapons gurus of the United States, who actually was invited to the Hermit Kingdom in, I think, 2003 or 2004, and then I think actually went back. And it was, if you get a chance, if you didn't see it, you really do need to see it. Because this fellow was actually handed a sample of their plutonium. He knew it to be real because of the color, because it is radioactive, meaning it should have some worth to it, and it did. Now, this is back in 2004. They also took him to a building that had a blue roof, which, by the way, has been doubled in size since his visit. And underneath in this building, under the blue roof, were 2,000 brand new centrifuges. He was stunned when he saw that.
And you called this the what kingdom?
We call it the Hermit Kingdom. It's not a hermit kingdom, but North Korea.
Yeah. I found that to be funny. I wanted to bring that to the attention of everybody because you blew past that pretty quickly. So let me ask you this. If this nuclear guru guy from the United States wants to go back now, does he have to do all that ridiculous paperwork and make sure all his affairs are in order?
He's retired, but he's only...
Well, that doesn't mean anything. I mean, Vallely went to Syria and he was retired. Major General Vallely did.
Well, he did that as a private citizen.
Well, this guy is a private citizen too, right?
Yes, he is now. He might be on some kind of an advisory committee, but what he is saying is that these North Koreans, they have, for the most part, a very rudimentary system, but is in fact quite functional and quite real. And there were a couple other people that were in this, 30-minute documentary thing, if you will, that validated the fact that we have to take everything quite seriously. This, they do seem to have what they say they have, and to the point where the more recent revelation of this particular warhead can and does fit inside the nose cone of an intercontinental ballistic missile. So
yeah, that's bad news for all of those of us that are looking forward to the Winter Olympics.
Indeed so.
Yeah. Denise, let me ask you this. If we know about this building with the blue top on it, and we know that it's doubled in size, and we know all this stuff is allegedly in it, why don't we hit that thing with a Moab or something and be done with that?
Mostly because on the 38th parallel, you have got missile batteries that go on for about 200 miles that are all aimed at Seoul.
Yeah.
But you also have...
that place is on our radar, right? Big time.
Yeah, we're watching virtually everything, and it's really quite remarkable what we can see. So we know a whole lot more than we're being told in the media. It's really fascinating what we do know.
All right, well, hold on a second. You got about 2 minutes. Why don't you enlighten me and the rest of the listeners on some of those fascinating things that we see that the mainstream media is not talking about?
Well, we have some very, very sophisticated satellite systems that are watching virtually every corner of North Korea, to the point where we know where those sites are. We know where their missile sites are. We know where their centrifuges are. We know where their command and control is. We know the cars that they're driving. We know that there are tunnels being built. We could probably even tell you the tag numbers on the vehicles if they have tag numbers. Do we know where Kim is 24/7? Pretty much, unless he gets there from underground, which he likely could. But if he spotted someplace and he's gone someplace else, and we didn't see him, we can pretty much tell there's a tunnel between A and B.
Right.
We have Global Hawk, a very sophisticated system. We have sniffer airplanes that are in the air that are testing air constantly. We are also working with I guess they're called seismologists, that measure any kind of ground movement, essentially coming off of an earthquake, if you will. So they can literally pinpoint where this epicenter happened, how big it was, and we can determine how deep underground it was. So you put all of those things together, and we know specifically and I would say, precisely what they're doing. Now, the bigger challenge is the cyber side. I think that we are quickly figuring out all of that in case we have to take some preemptive action on the cyber side, meaning that we could impede his command and control and his connectivity, because I think he's got 9,000 operatives that are cyber operatives that are operating not only in the country, but really just outside the border inside of China. So I think we're working through those things right there from the cyber side if we have to take a preemptive strike in some form or fashion.
Do you agree with Lieutenant Colonel Buzz Patterson that probably not much is going to happen until after the Olympics?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. But I can tell you this, the security and the intelligence gathering and all of the things that we normally do to prepare for Olympics is probably increased by a factor of 10, maybe even 100 times, given the conditions and the locations of this particular Olympics. I don't think we're being fooled by the fact that we've gone into these talks between North and South Korea and that North Korea is sending some kind of an orchestra or some kind of a marching band and maybe some athletes. We're not being fooled by that in the least. Interestingly enough, the head of the Trump National Security Council, General McMaster, met with some very interesting people this past Saturday in California, in San Francisco. So we're who
are they? What do you
don't
mean,
know.
Very interesting people.
They met with some people from Japan, and he met with some people from South Korea. So
I thought you might have been talking about Tom Del Beccaro, but I guess it's
no, he wasn't
somebody
included.
of an Asian background.
Yeah, he wasn't included in this one.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time. This show runs for 52 minutes straight without any commercial breaks, and we do that because Denise and I don't take commercial breaks when we do our normal sit reps, and we want to give this to you as we experience, or at least I experience, the remaining 4 nights out of the week. We're glad you joined us. We hope you'll tell your friends and family about this show, ladies and gentlemen. You can find more information out about it, the schedule, at talkamericaradio.us. Click on the show schedule link, check on the show link, whatever you want to check on. Go check that out. You'll also see all of Denise's articles posted on talkamericaradio.us as well, and politicalvanguard.com. That's Tom Del Beccaro's fantastic site. Denise, get us out of here because we're out of time.
All right. Thanks for being with us, and God bless America.